Today I'm behind the wheel of a brand new 2021 Mazda 6. And for this year, Mazda made a few subtle tweaks, including a slight bump in power. Features like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is now standard across all trims, and upper trims like the Signature receives wireless CarPlay. Also, there's a few additional safety features and a brand new trim level called Carbon Edition. So, is this Mazda 6 still one of the best midsize sedans you could buy today? Well, let's find out. All right, I'm on the road, so let's see how good this brand new Mazda 6 is and see how it drives. Let's start out with the outside for this Mazda 6 because to me, it is one of the best looking sedans out there. Although the midsize sedan segment is very, very hot right now. You have the brand new Camry, the new Accord, the new Sonata, the new K5. They all look pretty good, but this Mazda 6 has its own style, its own flair that's very different. You know, Mazdas have that same kind of curvy, bubbly look, right? But Mazda mixed in sophistication and elegance, and it's a good blend, and that's the same thing with this Mazda 6. So if you start out by looking at the front end, you still have that big grille. It's very unique, especially with the Signature trim, right? And then you see that chrome bar that spreads from one side to the other. The headlights are sleek and they're full LED with LED daytime running lights. Also, they have auto leveling and they have the adaptive lighting system, which means that they can bend with their steering wheel. So you get the complete package up front. And you know, the hood is a long sloping hood, and it gives this Mazda 6 a good aggressive look that I really enjoy. Now moving to the side, you know, it has a sedan profile. There's not much else to say other than it looks like a sedan, right? But Mazda did add a few cues. Like if you look at the lines, like the shoulder line and the hips, they have good contour. So Mazda did mix in some stylish curves to this Mazda 6. Also, look at the really unique 19-inch wheels. They're like a satin chrome color, 19-inch, and they give this Mazda 6 a good stance. And overall, everything blends in really well. And same thing when you move out back, you know, still that same design language. I like how the LED taillights, they are smoked and they have this black insert within. You know, it looks good. It looks good. And you still have that chrome bar, and underneath you have pretty big dual chrome exhaust tips that is very noticeable. So it adds that sporty vibe to the look. So overall, I think Mazda did a really good job with the outside. Now it's, you know, since looks is subjective, I can't really say if this is the best looking midsize sedan, but it's definitely one of the better ones. Now, when you move to the inside, it's the same story, but I would argue that this Mazda 6 interior is either the best or the second best for this class. I mean, between this and a Sonata, it's a really tight race, although I would say probably I would give the edge to Sonata, but either way, this is a beautiful, beautiful interior. First of all, I love the contrast. Normally with Mazda, especially with the Signature, it's basically black with some kind of dark burgundy color, and it just looks like black on black for the most part. And there's nothing wrong with that, except sometimes a little pop does wonders. And that's the case with the inside of this Mazda 6. I mean, I love the use of black and white. It really, really pops. And if you opt for the Carbon Edition, you actually get a red interior, which also looks really, really nice. But I like the fact there is contrast. And mixed in with the contrast, you do have a blend of soft, like Alcantara material, right? It's hard to notice, but not all of the white that you see is actually leather. So there are some parts it's like a soft cloth, and actually feels really good when you're, you know, when you're touching it with your hands. Also, there's good use of aluminum everywhere. The handles are aluminum, the door panels have them, on the dash, right? And even the seat controls are covered in aluminum. So there's a good mix of aluminum in here, and overall, this is a very stylish interior, and I'm a big fan of this interior. Now, as for some of the features you get inside, well, you pretty much get it all with a few exceptions. Let's start out with the heads-up display. You do get a heads-up display inside the Signature, which is really nice. It's nice and bright, adjustable. You can see all the essential stuff right in front of your face. So that is available, and some others in this class, for example, the Honda Accord doesn't offer it. Also, the gauge cluster. It's not fully digital, but it's a good mix of analog and digital. Inside the middle, there's like a circular ring that makes you feel like it's analog, but it's not. And that screen can change depending on what you want to see, your trip computer, your safety system settings, all that kind of good stuff, right? And also on the side, you have a couple analog gauges, and it gives you all the essential information. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's not the fanciest, but I like it. Now, unfortunately, the infotainment system and screen, that's where the Mazda 6 doesn't shine. This is the older setup. This is actually a 7-inch screen, and it's utilizing the older Mazda Connect system. So if you're looking at the resolution, it's not very high res. There is lag whenever you move between the menus. The good thing is, the saving grace for this system is it is touch, so you can use your fingers and navigate around. But for the most part, you want to navigate with the big control knob and the buttons around. This is the same setup that you use on a newer infotainment system, even in the CX-5, CX-9, right? I wish Mazda put that system in here, because that screen is much bigger, brighter, more responsive. It just works better. This one is okay. It's okay, but it definitely is showing its age. And when you compare this to the infotainment systems from the competition, probably on the lower side if I had to judge. Now, what I like underneath, you have climate controls that's integrated into the dash. I like that. It looks really nice. Of course, you have a couple knobs for your temperature, also fan control, defroster options, stuff like that. But you also do get a heated steering wheel and heated and ventilated seats for both driver and passenger. So that's really nice inside the Signature. Unfortunately, when you move underneath, I was expecting a wireless phone charger, and you don't get that inside the Signature. So unfortunately, that's one of the features that's not available inside this Mazda 6 Signature for some reason. I mean, almost every other midsize sedan, at least the top trim, comes with one, with the exception of this Mazda 6. Now, what I do like is it does still have a standard shifter, and that is controlling the 6-speed automatic in here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, your volume knob is underneath here too, so you have to remember that, because in most cars it's by the infotainment screen. This one is in the center console. Now, you do have 2 cup holders and a small armrest with 2 USB ports inside. So unfortunately, the 2 USB ports that you get up here is hidden within. There is no USB ports, out front. And I want to thank one viewer for pointing this out, because I did create a Mazda 6 first look video, and that viewer said there's no armrest. Even though, yes, there's a small one, but I know what he's talking about now, because if you're trying to put your arm here, it's very hard, because most of the space is actually for the cup holder. So you actually have to stick your arm really, really far back, and it's not a comfortable position. So I know what he's talking about now. I'm glad, whoever you are, for pointing that out, so I appreciate it. So that is actually a flaw up here too. Now, inside the Signature, you also get a frameless rear view mirror. That's pretty nice. Also HomeLink buttons, and you get a regular sunroof. Unfortunately, this is the only option. You do not get to select a panoramic sunroof. Next, let's talk about space, starting with the trunk. Inside the trunk, it looks okay, but it's a little shallow, and if you look at the overall cargo space, definitely not the leader of this pack. Of course, you can fold down the second row to generate more cargo room, so that's nice, but I would say cargo room is just so-so. Now, when you move in this second row, you'll notice that beautiful leather, right? I love the leather, and everything inside just looks good. But space is lacking. So I'm 5'10", and I only have about 2 inches of legroom behind my driving position. Also headroom, same thing, about 2 inches. I definitely feel small sitting in the second row. I feel a little too snug, if you know what I mean. And there's a big difference between this and, say, the second row inside a Accord, which makes you feel like you're in a gigantic limo-like sedan. There's a huge difference between the rear seats between these two cars. And same thing, if you're looking at like a Camry or a Sonata, the rear isn't as big as an Accord, but it is definitely bigger than this Mazda 6. Now up here, kind of the same thing, although not as bad. Shoulder room, okay. Hip room, okay. But I think what makes you feel like it's a little bit too snug is because of how high you sit, and you have to sit a certain height because the hood is pretty high up, so you do have to sit pretty high. Also, the door panels are very high, and the roof isn't that high, right? So I have like 2-3 inches of headroom, right? So with this driving position, which I think is the most comfortable for me, I feel very snug. So I do feel like Mazda did this on purpose because they want to give you that what they used to call zoom feel, you know, like a sport sedan feel. And I get what they're trying to do, but for me, I feel like it just doesn't really fit this car. This car is a looker. It's definitely more luxurious. So, you know, I just feel like the snugness doesn't really fit. But maybe you guys disagree. You have to go for a test drive and see for yourself. As I'm coming to a stop, the brakes feel good, the pedal feels good, has a good linear feel. It's not mushy, it's not stiff. The Mazda 6 comes to a stop when you expect it to, so the brakes are good. What's also good are these seats. These front seats, not only do they look gorgeous, they look absolutely gorgeous, but they feel very comfortable. Sometimes, you know, manufacturers try to give you sport seats or sportier seats that are just a little bit too stiff and too narrow or aggressive. Not these. The bottom cushion, you know, they feel really nice. Very, very nice. I don't feel like the cushion's like trying to cut in my thighs or anything. And the back bolsters too, not very aggressive, holding my back. And even though these are leather seats, they're Napa leather seats, I'm not sliding around. So the seats are very comfortable. And same thing with the rear. The seats in the rear are also very comfortable. And it's very, very quiet in here. Virtually silent. No wind noise, no road noise, cars passing by, very minimal. The only thing I really hear is the engine, and that's about it. So let's talk about the engine. So this Signature comes with the optional 2.5 liter turbo engine. This is the one engine that Mazda is putting in basically in all their cars, right? And it's a good engine, 250 horsepower. And for 2021, Mazda bumped up the torque by 10. So 320 pound-feet of torque. It's made it to a 6-speed automatic. And this is a good engine. The only drawback is to get this kind of power from it, you have to use premium gas. You can use regular gas, but the power drops down, not significantly, but it does drop down a little bit. So it just depends on if you want that much power or not. So that's the only drawback. But, you know, in a little bit, I'm going to test out to see how good this engine is in terms of accelerating. But around town is more than adequate, especially with the 6-speed. It's not hunting for gears. It always feels like you're in the right gear. There's the right amount of power. Anytime you put your foot down on an accelerator, you know, this Mazda 6 goes, right? The only drawback right now that I could hear actually is the engine noise is quite loud. Even idling on the outside, it makes a lot of noise, and on the inside, it also makes a lot of noise too for some reason. Just, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's definitely louder than some of the other engines from other manufacturers in this class. Now, I do remember when I tested out a CX-5 and a CX-9 with this same engine, the engine actually sounded really good under full acceleration. Like it almost had like a deep growl to it, which doesn't really make any sense because it's a 4-cylinder, but let's try it. Yeah, you still get that deep growl. So I was rolling around 10 miles per hour, sped up to about 60, and this turbo engine actually kicked into traction control. It is a little bit cold out, so traction isn't the greatest. But that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. It did have that growly exhaust sound. I don't know if Mazda tweaks it to have that way or there's some kind of exhaust bypass valve or something, but it definitely sounds different under full acceleration in a good way. Actually sounds really mean from a 4-cylinder, which is very unusual, very unusual. However, with that said, this does not feel as fast as the Camry V6 or the Accord 2-liter turbo. I know those are rockets, okay? Those are doing 0 to 60 under 6 seconds, about 5.5 to 5.7. And I believe I read this is around 6.4 seconds, 6.6, so it isn't bad, but it's not nearly as fast as those. And you could definitely feel it. I mean, this is more than enough to get up to speed and pass people, get on the highway, you know. But if you're trying to race, unfortunately, you're going to lose out to those two other sedans. As for the rest of the ride, this is one of the best. And I'm talking about the suspension and steering feel, right? So Mazda is kind of like the BMW of Japanese manufacturers. They really emphasize on, you know, having a lively drive in all their cars and SUVs. And you definitely get that inside this Mazda 6. The suspension is a mix between sport and comfort, right? So it's definitely not the softest suspension out there, but it isn't bad around town. It isn't. But you get a good sense of balance and control and somewhat of a limited body roll around corners. It's not riding on rails, let's put it that way, but it does a good job. So the suspension is good, and keep in mind this is with 19-inch wheels. If it was 18, you know, it would be even better. But the steering also complements this suspension really well. It's a very tight feel, very controlled feel, and it does make you feel like, you know, this Mazda 6 is nimble. It gives you that feeling. There's virtually zero steering play. That's how precise it is, and it has a really good weight. And plus, the steering wheel itself is nice, very nice. Modern design, right thickness, the leather feels good. You know, there's a little bit too many buttons though. You know, on the right side, you have everything for your adaptive cruise control. Left side, you know, for scrolling and music and volume and phone and the info screen. You know, there is a little bit too many buttons, but you'll get used to it. And you also get paddle shifters, which is nice if you wanted to shift by yourself. So besides a new carbon trim that was added for 2021, which gives you a special polymetal, you know, paint on the outside and red interior and darker wheels. So besides the new trim and the slight bump in power, you also get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, now standard across all trims. Previously, it was only standard, unfortunately, on upper trims, but now it's standard across all trims, so that's definitely a necessity these days. Like every single car has it built in. That's what people are looking for. So, but the good thing is on the Signature, and I think the Grand Touring and the Signature, you get wireless CarPlay. Not wireless Android Auto, but wireless CarPlay. So that's pretty nice. You don't have to plug in anymore. I know that is like the latest craze now. So that is also added for 2021. And safety features, there's more of it. So this iActive safety sense that you get pretty much in all Mazdas now gives you front emergency braking, a lane assist, adaptive cruise control, auto high beam, road sign, ability to read a road sign. So all those are already added in. Also, blind spot monitor is added in. And on the Signature, you have front and rear sensors. But for 2021, you also get emergency rear braking, which is nice, and driver attention system. So if you are not paying attention, this Mazda will know and let you know that you're not paying attention. So that has also been added for 2021. So in terms of safety, this Mazda 6 is slightly safer. Other features I didn't mention that you get inside a Signature, well, you get a black headliner. It's not Alcantara, but it is black, so it's a little bit different. Rear passengers do get a pair of vents, also heated seats, and USB ports, but they're hidden inside the armrest, so you have to look for that. Also, you get a 360 view camera system, so when you go into reverse or you press the camera button, you can get a 360 view of what's around your Mazda 6 and see what's behind you or ahead of you. Unfortunately, the resolution just isn't the greatest. It's a little bit washed up and grainy and blurry, so that's one of the reasons why I wish Mazda put in the new 10-inch infotainment screen, which I'm probably thinking will come next year in 2022. I'm not sure if Mazda plans on doing a refresh or a complete redesign, but I know that is probably coming up next because that's really the only thing that didn't get updated for this year. As for visibility and driving position, they're decent, but not the best. In terms of visibility, I mentioned because of the high door panels and the high hood, so it isn't the greatest. It's okay, but isn't the greatest. Same thing with the rear. You know, the window slants down quite a bit, so it's a good view, but isn't the greatest. blind spot also. The C-pillar covers up some of the blind spot, but you do get blind spot monitoring in here, so that's not a worry. So visibility is okay. Now driving position, it depends, I guess, because you're sitting in a sedan, so it's low to the ground, similar to other midsize sedans. But because of the visibility, I do feel like other sedans feel better, more comfortable, more airy, with the better visibility. Now, some of you guys may like this better because you do have a snugger and more sport feel, right? So maybe you do like this better because you do get that sports sedan feel, less so in other sedans, but more so inside this Mazda 6. So I guess it just depends on your taste. All right, next up, let me talk about the different trim levels and pricing and give you my final thoughts on this brand new Mazda 6. As for trim levels, there are 6 to the brand new Mazda 6. The base Sport starts at $24,325. Then you have the Touring, Grand Touring Reserve, the brand new Carbon Edition, and finally the range-topping Signature, which starts a tad under $36,000. To conclude, the 2021 Mazda 6 is a fantastic midsize sedan that is in a very crowded and competitive segment. The elegant exterior is still one of the best in the segment, and the interior's quality, look, and feel is simply outstanding. The optional engine is fun and lively, the transmission is good, and the steering and suspension is among the best for this class. The bad include cramped second row along with trunk space. Also, the infotainment screen is small, dated, and the resolution is lacking. And some high-end features found in other sedans are not found in the Mazda 6. Overall, I'm giving the 2021 Mazda 6 a score of 95. To see where it ranks, check out driversonlyrankings.com. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel and check out these other videos.